guys like AJ and Kamari coming in, and then also guys like Cam and Shaman coming back. What are you kind of excited about with the depth there?
Yeah, no, we really have a great room. You know, I'm excited about it. Obviously, bringing all conference player back and Shaman as the leader of our group, and then really getting Harp to be able to really play the role that I think is best fitting to his skill set. So seeing him, he's had an unbelievable spring. He's been consistently good from the beginning. And then when you splice in Kamari, who's a tremendous player, got 2 years of experience. As a young, he's still 19 years old. 2 years of experience in the SEC, and then obviously AJ is the man child that's having a great spring. That kid's been working really hard. So and then you got Colson Aarons that's really doing a good job, and he's been getting reps, and then some young guys with Giggy and Jaden as well. So we really like our group, like the dynamic of our group. Those guys really all push each other and support each other, and we got a good group of kids. They're team guys, they're team first guys, and it's been fun to see them start getting a little bit more run in 12 and 13 and getting some plays called for them. And I think that's a testament to them just showing up and working every day.
Yeah, and it seems like you, along with the other position coaches, have honed in on building the culture and the relationships, and you've had your experience with that at the high school level. But I just want to start from the top. In your time at ASU and starting up the Scottsdale Youth Program back in your day, how pivotal of a role was it to start up a program like that at that age for you to kind of segue you into your coaching career?
Yeah, it was. I mean, honestly, it was really cool for me because I kind of got to, be a head coach and be a play caller, and a lot of times I was calling the offense and defense at the youth level, and it was like, when you're getting into something, you just engulf yourself in it. And I think for me, that's what it was. It was all football all the time. It was the youth, so I was able to learn on the fly, and I was able to make a lot of mistakes along the way. And I had a lot of energy, and I think I was good at building relationships and getting kids to play hard. I don't think I was a great coach yet at the time, but I think I grew and developed tremendously starting at that level. And I think when you get used to teaching the game at the very beginning level, you don't lose the sight of being a teacher. And I think that's one thing that I pride myself in is there's a lot of guys that can coach, guys that know how to do it already. But to teach somebody that doesn't have that skill set, that is not comfortable doing what you're asking them to do yet, I think that's a skill. That's something I pride myself in. And I think that comes from my background, starting coaching kids that never played football before and teaching them how to do the very basic things like getting in a stance and playing with pad level and fitting up a tackle and fitting up a block. And so I felt like that has transitioned to being able to still be a teacher, because the thing you look at, I talk about guys all the time, is a lot of these tight ends in high school haven't really played tight end. They're listed as tight ends, but they're just playing big receiver, and they haven't put their hand down. They haven't cut off the backside of a C gap. They haven't blocked front side of duo. They haven't done those things, and so I think that's where it's helped me in recruiting, because I think a lot of kids looking like, hey, I'm going to go play for a guy that's going to teach and going to develop and going to have patience with me because that's his background. So I think that's a huge thing that's allowed me to get to this level and have success.
And then that in Scottsdale allowed you to find Saguaro, which you obviously had a ton of success there, building that into a national powerhouse at a point. First, you did kind of that youth program eventually sort of became some sort of farming system in terms of just like segueing someone into
Yeah, there's no doubt. Well, the funny thing is, I was going to school here at ASU as a student. I saw an ad in the state press for youth sports coaches for the city of Scottsdale for $10 an hour. That's how I got into coaching. It was not on my radar. It wasn't my plan. I started doing that. I coached 4th and 5th grade girls basketball. That turned into junior high flag football. That group of kids, we had an awesome time. Loved the kids, loved the families, and they asked me to coach them in an NYS, tackle football league. And I started doing that, and that's what turned into the Scottsdale Argonauts youth football program. It just kept growing, and more kids wanted to do it, and the buddies wanted to do it. And I was having a blast. My roommates were coaching with me, and we were just doing it for fun. It wasn't like that was the end goal, was to be, here talking to you at Arizona State. And we had done the Argos for a couple of years, and then I got a call out of the blue from Saguaro, from Frank Rubin, who's still over there as an assistant AD. And they knew somebody that knew me, and they needed a freshman coach. And I told them I wasn't qualified to coach freshman football. I was like, I'm doing the youth thing for fun, before I go off to chiropractic school. That was kind of my thought process. And but he's like, come over and meet with our coach, and I did it, and I got in, and I was like, what the heck, I'll give it a try. And I fell in love with it. I got the coaching bug. There's no doubt that having the youth football program, once I got established at a high school, that became a natural feeder, because football is about relationships. I don't care if it's at the youth level or the high school level or the college level or the pro level. It's a relationship business. And the fact that I was able to build some really genuine relationships with kids and families over the course of 3, 4, 5 years, and then when it came time for them to decide where they wanted to go to high school, it was natural to say, hey, we know this guy, we trust this guy. Our kids love playing for him, and that's how guys. That's why Christian Kirk ended up at Saguaro High School. Because I coached him from the time he was 9 years old, and we built a strong relationship and a strong bond. So there's no doubt that helped me transition, and I think it helped me go from being the freshman coach to getting a chance to be the running backs coach, and coaching DJ Foster as a freshman and building a relationship with him. There was a trust level where they had trust in me to be promoted to be his running backs coach his junior year, and then there was trust for me to be his offensive coordinator his senior year, and I think if DJ's like, no, I don't like this guy, I don't want him, they probably would have hired somebody else, so you just realize that you build relationships and you never know when those relationships will come back and benefit you. Sometimes it's right away, sometimes it's 10, 15 years down the road.
Yeah, and speaking of those relationships, it seems like you had that with Kenny before ASU, just both within the youth program but also competing against each other at the high school level. First, was there anything that you kind of saw in him at that point, just in terms of his trajectory as a coach, and also how has that relationship kind of formed, and then a decade later you're finally here with him?
Yeah, it's crazy. I was running the Argos program. He was coaching the lower levels at Chaparral, which is our rival. And one of our coaches on our staff knew him. We needed some coaches for our youth program. They're like, this guy's really good. He's got a ton of energy. He works for the city of Scottsdale also, doing youth sports. And so we brought him out. He did a great job. And then he kind of climbed the ladder. And then I ended up getting the head job. And I tried to hire him at Saguaro. I had him for like a month. And then Chaparral came back and gave him the offensive coordinator job. So, he ultimately got a promotion at his alma mater to be a varsity coordinator. I wasn't too thrilled that he bailed on me after a month, but I always tell people he's, down the road, he's ultimately made it back up to me. But no, I mean, that's it. I think when you're in it, you are attracted to people that you feel like are equally competitive, equally passionate, willing to work, not worried about like the time commitment or how much money I'm going to make. I mean, that was the one thing that stood out to me. It was like he was all about it. He was really sharp. We got him in and got him on the board. He knew football at a high level. He was hungry to learn more. No ego. Still to the day, he's head coach at the Big 12 champion Sun Devils, and it's the same guy. He's no ego. He's humble. He's hungry. Super smart. And it's interesting. That's why I tell people all the time, like, back then, I would have never thought that was the guy that ultimately would give me, this kind of an opportunity. But if you're a good person, you treat people the right way. You're attracted to people that are wired the same way as you. And I think that was it. That's what I noticed early from him, is he was all about ball. He was super sharp. He was good with kids, great personality, really relatable, and that's what's allowed him to be successful at this level.
And just a couple questions left. You mentioned Frank Rubin. I've got a chance to speak with him in the past, and going back there on Monday to talk a little more about your time at Saguaro. What did he kind of mean to your journey? You said he was the one who called you up.
Man, yeah, Frank has been awesome to me. I look at Frank, it's like he's like a best friend / father figure / funny uncle. Like, he's just all the above, and he was a guy that gave me a ton of confidence, like a guy that believed in me early. That gave me a lot. It's hard for other people sometimes to compliment people and encourage people and build people up, and he has always been that guy, not just for me. He's been that for everybody. I think he was really good with like what freshman football was about. He always said, make sure they get the warm and fuzzies, and I think that's still relatable to today. It's like it's got to be fun. It's a lot of work and it's a grind, and you don't have to play football to be a part of a social group anymore like you had to 30 years ago. And kids still need to enjoy themselves, and Frank was always really good at that, of like, hey, we're going to compete, we're going to win at a high level, we're going to put the work, and we're going to do all that stuff, but like, make sure you take the time to enjoy yourself too and have fun. And he's been awesome. He's been my biggest fan. He's been a system of support. When I lost my dad, he kind of took on a little bit of a father figure type role for me, and he's just always a guy that like never needs to be in the limelight. He's always there for others. He's to the core a good person. He's selfless. He's just as a human being, it's what it's about. He's got a great family. They've poured everything they have into Saguaro, and he's definitely a guy that I hold in the highest regards.
And then just two more to wrap it up. It seems like with you starting up the youth program, starting from ground zero, and then going to Saguaro, not necessarily starting from ground zero, but kind of transitioning into a new era for that program. And now you get hired here a couple years back with Kenny being a small part of a much bigger process to build from ground zero. So what has it kind of meant for you to start back at your alma mater and kind of make this into something bigger?
Yeah, I said the itch to make the jump, and I had a couple close calls over the years of where there were some real opportunities that came along, and I always felt like people always ask me all the time, well, when are you leaving? When are you leaving? I was like, it would just take something really special for me to leave. And I saw it from my dad's side, being in 18 cities over a 40-year career, and married and divorced, multiple times, because it's a hard life. It's hard on families, and I didn't want that for my family, and so I was very selective over if I do make the jump from high school, it's got to be great, because I loved my time at Saguaro. I wouldn't trade one of those years to have left earlier. But when this opportunity came, I knew that was the one, and to do it with a guy like Kenny, and I've known him and I've known his family. I know what kind of people they are. I heard early on, if you ever make the jump, work for somebody that loves their family, and that's Kenny checked that box, because I know his family and I know what they're about. And to be able to come home, my kids to stay in the same elementary school, to be able to be a part of a community I've been a part of for a long time, and to come back to my alma mater, a place that my dad coached. My mom was a cheerleader here, and to build it back up. That was, to me, I never knew what that special opportunity looked like, and when it presented itself, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, and then your father obviously coached at both the collegiate level and the pro level, and then you just mentioned here at Arizona State for 3 years under Frank Kush. So not only just being able to follow in his footsteps at ASU, but also some of the things that you've picked his brain and kind of evaluated from his career. What are some of the things that you take, and how much has he meant to your journey?
Yeah, I mean, that was my experience to football, growing up, being around that, talking to him. Obviously, my parents divorced when I was young. I didn't live with him full time, so anytime I was with him, it was usually around football. It was in the training camps in the CFL when he was up there. And then as I got into it, that was for me to have that wisdom of somebody. His career wasn't the ideal career path, and he bounced around a lot, and he never quite caught on with the right guy and had longevity in any one place. And I think I always paid attention to that. And you always talk about, I hope my kids do the same thing. Sometimes you learn from mistakes of your father or your parents. And he did a lot of things great. Who he was as a person to the core, his loyalty, his work ethic, all that stuff. I took a lot of that from him. But I also learned I don't want to put my family in a position where we're moving around the country every other year. And I want some stability. I want to be a part of a community. And I felt like that was one of the things when my dad passed, I was sad for him, as I felt like, the last 20 years or so of his career, he never got to really be a part of a community, and that's what was so attractive about being at Saguaro. And he told me, and he even said, it doesn't matter what level of ball you're coaching at. If you ever find yourself in a place where you're truly happy, don't worry about what your job title is. Don't worry about what level it is. If you're truly happy, then you're coaching ball, and that's all that matters. And that stuck with me. I think a lot of that was because he looked back and reflected on his career, and he said one of the times where he was truly happiest was after Coach Kush got fired here at ASU. He got the head job at Ventura College. It's a junior college in Southern California. It was the lowest level of ball he ever coached, but he said it was probably the most fun couple of years that he ever had, and had a young family, and was in charge and living in a great place. And so that always stuck with me, which is I was having such a great time at Saguaro, surrounded by great people. Too many to name off, and I wasn't in a rush to leave that. And that's why I said it would just take something special. But that did come along, and I wouldn't go back. I'm so happy to be here with Coach Dillingham, and we have a tremendous staff. We have tremendous people in this building. Charlie and Sean, and having them gone through a similar path to me, having those guys here in my corner has been so huge for my transition. But I definitely learned a lot from my dad, and just like any kid, you learn the things that you want to replicate, and you learn the things that you don't want to replicate, and I learned a lot of that along the way. And I wish I could pick up the phone and call him and get some advice for him as I continue to go through my career. But he definitely laid a foundation for me to have success at this level.
Perfect. I appreciate you.